Good morning, afternoon, depending on which place of the world you're at, to the Feminist AI Scientific Advisory Committee, as well as to our fellow cohort members. After months of work, we are really excited to present today the main findings of our research, the design implications that shape our technology idea, together with policy recommendations and a detailed work plan proposal for potentially moving forward with the second phase of our project. Next slide, please. First, I want to start with providing some context on our research problem and contributions. Crowd workers completing a broad range of tasks like audio and video transcription, content moderation, data gathering and processing, image identification, transcription and annotation, as well as translation, are contributing to the training and advancement of artificial intelligence systems. And in recent years, partially connected to the socioeconomic and geopolitical context of countries like Venezuela, the Latin American and Caribbean crowd workforce has grown. Latin American women make up a sizable portion of these workers, using crowd work as a path to financial independence while balancing traditional caregiver responsibilities assigned to them due to strong Latino patriarchal societies. Next slide, please. Crowd workers have also been referred to as ghost or invisible workers, as they are key to powering the AI industry, but are usually hidden and forgotten. Next slide. Unfortunately, research surrounding the perspectives of Latin American crowd works is incomplete. Next slide, Luces. Thank you. It's incomplete as current papers have mostly been documented and analyzed Western experiences with a focus on productivity, and without really centering crowd workers in systems design and without considering their identities, motivations, and well-being. We believe these considerations are important because they acknowledge crowd workers are not a monolith and may have different needs and goals. Designing systems sensitive to unique needs of a specific worker population can increase the likelihood of the tool's usefulness and, by extension, help crowd workers produce better quality work. Next slide. So, to address this knowledge gap, we designed two versions of a survey instrument addressed to more than 60 Latinas who use the crowdwork platform Toloca, which allows us for geographical filtering to understand their personal goals, professional values, and hardships faced in their work. And we use this information to inform our technology proposal. Additionally, our team analyzed the current state of AI-related crowdwork in the Latin America and the Caribbean region, studying the differentiated impact of such work opportunities for women and men, and offer policy recommendations based on international best practices and use cases. As part of our experimental approach, we became, no, not yet, Luces, thanks. Previous one, yeah. As part of our experimental approach, we became employers on the platforms as requesters and offer payment to crowd workers for the completion of the service as a test based on the minimum wage in the United States and the time allocated to complete such a test. In order to gain insight on how gender impacted their work, we used different questions regarding widely recognized gender factors such as time poverty, work-home balance, outside attitudes to the work conducted, care work, and direct opinions whether they consider gender affected their work. The second version of the survey was an iteration of the first one based on feedback about the need to include additional questions to better understand the characterization of women working in crowd work in Latin America, their motivation, needs, socioeconomic context, skills, as well as hopes. The sample of the second survey included 57 women and 3 men. So who are these women? Next slide, please. 76% of respondents were 18 to 35 years old. In accordance with the age group, most respondents had a professional degree or had unfinished university studies. 13% of them held a master's degree. They balance their professional and personal goals, and they want to develop new skills. They work about 2 times per week in crowdwork platforms from their own devices and at home, and spend an average of 20 minutes completing one task, in some cases up to 40 minutes. The task they perform mostly is data labeling, web page testing, and survey, with about 10% of them also performing audio transcription tasks. Income per task is in the range of 0.01 to 0.16 cents per task, US dollars. 91% of the respondents perform other economic activities in addition to Toloca. The most recurrent reason to work on crowd platforms is to gain complementary income. Additionally, a preference for working from home and having schedule flexibility are important factors. Regarding the impact of the geopolitical situation of their country of origin, 68% of respondents considered the main impacts to the economic, which reduce their professional prospects and require them to perform a second economic activities. Next slide, please. So, some of the key insights reveal a majority of the women share a desire to learn from the experiences of other crowd-working and more seasoned women, particularly to help them navigate tasks, develop technical and soft skills, as well as to manage their finances with more ease. Additionally, 75% of the women reported completing crowd-work tasks on top of caring for their families, while over 50% confirm they need to negotiate their family's responsibility in order to pursue crowd-work in the first place. These findings confirm an important component lacking from the experiences of these women was a sense of connection with one another. Most importantly, the respondents share their preferred features for a tool. Explicability of tasks is important to them, and all the crowd workers, specifically in the Toloca platform, can contact their requesters. Multimedia resources and tutorials were identified as desirable and useful components to fully understand the tasks. Similarly, 63% of respondents used search engines and translating applications as tools. Prioritizing language learning features is important. And regarding the perceived need to share experience with other workers, the main goal of a communication feature would be to increase task completion, profitability, and performance. At least we believe this would happen initially. So for the next set of slides, I'll hand over to my colleague, Dr. Saif Savage, who led our technical team to present the design implications of our work.
Thank you very much, Cristina. It's such a great honor to be here. Next slide, please. So based on these findings, we decided to start to create an intelligent platform that could address the needs that we identified from our large-scale survey that we did with Latin American women and also from the Caribbean. Next slide, please. So one of the biggest findings that we had from our survey study was that these crowd workers wanted to be connected to each other. However, they wanted to have their own space that was independent of the crowd work platform where they were operating. They wanted to have their own digital space where they could share experiences, they could learn together. So we decided to create a platform called La Independiente, which is a place where women crowd workers from across the world can come in and start to share experiences with each other. They can connect, and they are also empowered to start to develop their professional career. The AI is because we have an intelligent agent that will guide these women to connect efficiently with each other. And not just in terms of productivity, but also with social activities. Additionally, it's also going to recommend tasks to them and help them grow professionally. Next slide, please. So our platform, La Independiente, what it does is that it allows crowd workers to start to get a profile about all of their experiences that they've had on the platform. And so they start to create their own little profile, and they're able, on one hand, to be able to grow professionally while also being able to develop social skills. Next slide, please. And so we're in the process of developing an intelligent chatbot that, based on the prompts that crowd workers give it, can provide relevant information about how to grow professionally. Here, we're planning on working, for instance, with a lot of new technology that has come out, such as ChatGPT, and connecting it with our findings and human-centered design in order to create an intelligent chatbot that can guide crowd workers on how to develop relevant skills, with which women to connect with, how to have a much more richer experience on the crowdsourcing platform that will help them to increase their wages, as well as be able to grow professionally. And so this is an example of a chatbot that we started to explore, which is, it takes the form of another woman who can guide them into success. And here we're connecting with heroes. We're using a lot of culture theory as well in our design of our technologies. Next slide, please. And another thing that our tool will do is it will intelligently connect crowd workers with other women who can guide them for success. So we're going to have a lot of mentorship that will have social connections, professional connections, as well as facilitate the skill development. Here again, we're connecting with culture theory in order to design an intelligent interface that takes into account the values that these Latino women have, for instance, an emphasis on prioritizing the family. But an interesting thing about these women in comparison, for instance, to women in India, was that they were much more independent. They were able to decide when they wanted to do crowd work. They didn't have necessarily to report to a man. And so we're taking that into account in order to design our interface to enable them to have further independence while pushing forward their professional careers. And this is an example of that intelligent interface connecting them with those with those other experts. Next slide, please. And overall, we're planning on using, for instance, reinforcement learning, and where we're going to be getting feedback from crowd workers about how much the chatbot, the intelligent chatbot, is guiding them, how useful the advice is, and we're going to be using that feedback for improving the AI in order to receive better recommendations. And so here, the end user, the woman, is going to be providing that type of feedback. And that's a little bit about the design, the intelligent interface that we're planning on doing in the next phase. Next slide, please. And so additionally, we also thought about policy recommendations, which Cristina will talk about, which I think is a great aspect about our team, that we're not only focused on the technical side and the research side, we also have connections with real world stakeholders. And we're also thinking about this policy aspect. So I'll lead off to Cristina. Thank you.
Thank you, Saif. As I have mentioned at the beginning of our presentation, our team developed a series of policy recommendations alongside the design implications, focusing on 3 different types of actors that are key to the crowd work space. One of them is the crowd work platforms, and some of the recommendations include, for instance, allowing for the filtering and desegregation of data. This is critical to allow the researchers, policymakers, together with decision makers within the private sector and public sectors, to better understand the characteristics of crowd workers by region, countries, and other key variables. We're also recommending to establish transparent standards for assigning equitable payment, and to support and promote English skill building and the training to non-English speaking crowd workers. For international organization, we recommend updating the estimates on the size of the collective labor force and supporting initiatives that connect stakeholders from academia, civil society, and policymaking of the crowd work space with workers to promote organization. To policymakers, researchers, and community leaders, we are suggesting co-constructing roles for Global South actors to engage in AI governance, centering on the well-being of crowd workers in varying contexts, and also sharing insight and knowledge with platforms policy teams, with other researchers and leading voices in the crowd work space. Next slide, please, Luces. To summarize our presentation, during the first phase of our project, we conducted a literature review, offered policy recommendations, deployed surveys, and presented our main findings and recommendations to build a smart tool prototype, La Independiente. We are aiming for a second stage of continued collaboration with the A+ Alliance Feminist AI Network, from paper to prototype to pilot, program within 3 components. The first one is to test our concept La Independiente through a pilot. Second, to organize a policy forum that brings together practitioners in the field to connect and train them on feminist design, as well as 3, to build alliances with other researchers, organizations, and community leaders to scale our initiative. Next slide, please. We have a detailed 9-month timeline that we have already shared with you, where we provide specific activities proposed as part of a potential second stage. Next slide, please. We also, as Saif already mentioned, wanted to highlight the strengths of our team and the variety of disciplines represented. Beat Policy Lab, UNAM Civic Innovation Lab, Northeastern University Civic AI Lab, and Puentec Lab are women-led organizations with multidisciplinary teams that aim to harness emerging technologies for the public interest, with a focus in the global side. Our current research takes into account the author's experience in international relations, systems engineering, public policy, technology policy, and entrepreneurship, gender studies, and data science. Each team member contributes with an area of specialization and skill sets that intersects with the main objectives of our proposal. Next slide, please. We strongly believe that a better future in crowd work can only be fulfilled with key aspects involved, such as transparency for pay and opportunities for advancement are embodied in tools available to crowd workers. So finally, next slide, please. We want to take a moment to thank colleagues who were key to providing feedback and constructive criticism throughout the research process. Through the Feministea Network, Paola, Mariel, Caitlin, Jaime, we really want to thank you for all your help and support, to the interns from Paid Policy Lab that work in this project, and to two people specifically from the Tolocas Educational Program that were very open to conversation and that offered information that was important for the literature review and for the context of the use of the Toloca platform. Next slide, please. So thank you very much. And we look very much forward to continue collaborating with you. Here's our contact information, and we remain at your disposal to continue this discussion that is just getting started.